Hey guys, John from JohnMurrayHeadshots.com here in the studio, and we have Danny O'Brien, the superstar comedian, in the studio. Danny works all over the world, does shows everywhere. He's opened for Bill Burr in the Tree Arena and lots of other really cool people.
That was a good one.
Nobody told him to interrupt me. This is my superstar intro, Danny.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic.
Danny's not used to LinkedIn, so Danny's getting onto LinkedIn. He's going to be starting to post on LinkedIn as well, taking the comedy to a different level by interacting with people on LinkedIn. If there's anything that you think he should be doing on LinkedIn, or any tips or tricks for him to use his LinkedIn better, comment below, post them below.
Like that.
That's a real Instagram
That's
thing.
great content.
This is going to be a little bit like the Joseph Maguire video. That was amazing, and we had all the facial profiling and stuff going on, and I'm going to sit up in my chair because I look like I'm really enjoying myself and relaxing. We posted onto Instagram, posted onto LinkedIn, and asked if anybody has any questions for me or for Danny to throw them out there, and everybody sent messages to him, the same as the Joseph Maguire. So we're going to read out a couple of questions, we're going to answer the questions, and then we're going to have a bit of a chat about anxiety and performance and public speaking and stuff like that, because both of us do the public speaking thing. We both do it on completely different levels, and for completely different reasons. So let's have a quick look at some of the questions. One of the questions, the first one that came in, was from a guy named James, who says, when coming up with material, what percentage of bits is worked out on stage versus what's pre-written? He also says, thanks, love the Comedy Crunch, there every week. Signed, James.
Oh, so James, what a hero. Yeah, I haven't worked out the algorithm, to be honest with you, for the percentages, but it's basically trial and error when it comes to new material. You have your idea for a new joke. Like last night, for example, I tried out 2 little bits and they kind of work, so I'll develop them over the course of months and stuff like that. They may make it into next year's show, or they may just remain short club bits. But the idea is, you have an idea for something, but it's just about working it out. And for me, everything comedy is just trial and error. Everything is trial and error. You just try a bit, and sometimes you might have a joke that you think is really great, but then a throwaway line during that joke that you end up saying becomes a bigger part of your set than the actual joke itself. But that's kind of how I work stuff out, but everyone's process is different.
You don't just write stuff though, you live it.
My handwriting's got really bad over the last couple of years, as I think nearly all of us have, because we spend all our time on our phones and keyboards and stuff. So I always scroll ideas in notebooks, and I've just got all these different random words. So I started putting it into notes on my phone, and I kind of work through them. So before I go on stage, I'll have a look at the ideas, and then I'll put them in the middle of a set. Like if I'm doing I'm doing a half an hour set, I'll put the newer stuff kind of in the middle of the set. So it's kind of cushioned by stuff that already works.
Yeah.
And then you give it a little bit of a chance, and you know yourself. You have to have a bit of self-awareness. I think that's the most important thing with comedy. You have to admit when something works, but more importantly when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you go, but you can still kind of sense that there's something in it. Or sometimes you have to just go, I thought that was funny, no one else did, let's never talk about that again.
See, that's the sort of stuff that makes it into the studio with me, because I'd say stuff that I think is funny, and even if they don't think it's funny, when I'm trying to make people laugh and stuff like that, I'll still punch it at them, and then when they don't laugh, I'll go, well, I don't care, I thought that was hilarious.
Then they'll laugh. Yeah, but you won't have a job. If I did that, I wouldn't have a job.
A whole show of stuff.
I don't care, lads, this isn't about you.
I'm shooting for me. But you live your shows though. Like you are, at the moment, you're living healthy. Like you're eating healthy. You're training.
When you're doing a new hour show, you want the narrative of what the new show is. Like when I did the prison shows, I went into prison and did gigs in prisons to kind of get an idea for it. And that's it's kind of put your head in the space. You know what I mean? And similarly, this year, the show is called Reformer. So it was about giving up everything, like giving up meat, cheese, alcohol, all the bold stuff in the world, and kind of write a show around it. And then sometimes that just becomes part of the show, and then they can go on a little bit of a tangent. But for an hour show, I think personally you need a bit of a structure, a bit of a narrative.
Yeah.
It's nearly like a skeleton of an idea, and then you flesh out the skeleton with jokes as the jokes that you try out bit by bit over the months. You know what I mean? So if your year's a skeleton, like every month you're putting a bit more muscle on the actual show.
Yeah, a lot of comics though they write shows about whatever's going on in the world. Like they're writing the material based on whatever's going on in the news that week or whatever's going on that month. And some of them are still using those jokes 10 years later. But like you physically live your show, like, which is kind of
there's like we all do certain topical stuff. I try to keep away from too much topical stuff because it has an expiry date, and for a lot of stuff that we're getting bombarded with on like social media, Facebook, Instagram, like, you know, Brexit for example, like we're all so sick of it, we're all so overwhelmed with it, it's so relentless. If people are out for a night out at a comedy gig, you want to talk about something a bit different, something relatable, but not something that people are sick of hearing.
Next question: does Danny gig anywhere regularly other than Dublin?
Yeah, all the
That's
time.
That's from Podge, by the way. Podge is Irish, an Irish version of the name Podrick or Patrick.
Podrach.
Because we have many people watching this that are not going to be in Ireland. So Podge is not just a name; it's a nickname from Podrick, which is the Irish for Patrick.
Podge isn't just a name; it's a state of mind.
There you go.
All over. Belfast regularly, Galway regularly. I tour all over Ireland as well. And then I gig outside of Ireland. This weekend I'm in Berlin, Eindhoven and Luxembourg, and I'm in London a good bit as well, and Australia. You name it, wherever the gigs are, I follow.
Wherever the good money is.
Yeah.
Show me the money. The next video, or the next question, why am I saying video, is Danny, is comedy more about jokes than the delivery for you? And that's from Rats1 on Instagram.
Well, Rats1. I
wonder if that's a real name.
Yeah, was he in love hate? I think the delivery is crucial. Like, material is important, but the like delivery is the whole reason something is funny or it isn't. Do you know what I mean? You could have 10 comics saying the same joke and you'll get 10 different reactions based on the delivery. Material is important, but I think working on the delivery and timing, it's so crucial. Like I like, it's something that I've only really been learning over the last few years, is how important taking like short little breaks and how you stand and stuff like that, and how important that is for people to get a joke and to feel it and to absorb the kind of awkwardness as well. Like, I used to have a huge fear in comedy. I'd barrel through everything. Like, I'd get a laugh and then I'd be like bang bang bang, and I'd be just trying to I wouldn't be able to deal with the cringe of the silence. And even in solo shows, you have to have silence. You can't have people laughing for an hour. No one can sustain laughing, like, you know, knee slapping for an hour. You have to have those breaks and you have to build the tension. And I think comedy ultimately is all about tension, whether it's just a short little gag or a 5-minute story. That release is what makes comedy great. It's that build up, and then the release. That's the best thing about it.
I know when I speak, like, I'm talking at Networking Summit next week, and I was only talking the other day at Pro Photo Conference, but I build the same kind of thing. I build the story in waves, so I build my whole presentation in different waves. Like, I'm not one of these people who puts stuff up on the screen as text and then reads it off. I can't do that because I have this lighthouse head thing where I go off on tangents and stuff like that,
same.
and I come back. But so I just show images that will bring me back to keep me on track, I suppose. But I like to build different waves of the conversation around self-image and self-acceptance, because I'll start off with something funny, like, or I'll talk about a couple of clients and I'll talk about whatever's going on in the studio and whatever I'm up to, and then I'll talk about something kind of hard hitting to wake people up, like the "Am I Ugly" message or any of that sort of stuff. But it builds and builds and builds, and then it's like the energy gets sucked out of the room with silences and stuff. And I think it's important as well, because there's a lot of people that speak publicly, or you're trying to get into public speaking and you want to know tips and tricks on public speaking. I think we'll talk a bit more about that. But one of the best things in the whole world is silence. If you start off standing on a stage and you're about to speak, everybody's expecting you to launch straight into talking. If you stand there and say nothing for a second, the room will go dead quiet, because everybody's looking at you as if you've made a mistake or you've forgotten what you're supposed to say. And there's that whole thing of, it's almost like the Colosseum. You know, everybody's watching for the horror to happen. You're waiting on something negative to happen, and when you stand there and haven't said anything for about 5 or 6 seconds, it looks like you've forgotten what you're supposed to say, or you've gotten stage fright, you're freaking yourself out. And then if you start, and you start with a confident start and a couple of breaths, then you own the room instantly. And then if you can make them laugh, then that will help, which is, well, it has to help for him.
You're right though. I see a lot of that in TED Talks, for example. you'll see people walk out, they'll get the round of applause, and there's always that pregnant pause.
Yeah.
In nearly all TED Talks, you'll see that. And then in comedy for solo shows, for example, I always go out and I'll do a little bit of crowd work, welcome to the show, a little bit of crowd work and a few gags just to get the show going. And it's about trust, it's about establishing trust. So if you get those first few laughs in, they're settled and they know that they're not going to be stuck in some hostage situation for an hour where they have to watch some nightmare of a show where they're just going, oh no, we can't leave. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just need to let people know that what they're going to be sitting through for the next hour, because an hour is a long time, especially nowadays. You know what I mean? I honestly think the attention span for a stand-up show anyway is about 50 minutes. I honestly don't think I think people need to go to the toilet, they need to have a break, and they say that if you're working or anything, or if you're writing or doing it like that, 50 minutes is usually a good marker to have a little break, even if it's only for a couple of minutes. But this stuff of sitting or watching anything, like even if you watch Dances with Wolves, that's 3 hours. Like you're gonna have to have a couple of naps in between, or go to the toilet or whatever. It's, I think, but establishing that trust at the start and getting across that you're confident about what you're about to perform or what you're about to say to a group of people is really, really important, because it just lets them know that they're gonna be okay for the next hour.
Cool. They're just some of the Instagram things. We're not going to jump into every question that came through on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, because different audiences, like LinkedIn audience and Instagram audience and Facebook audience and Twitter audience, they're all completely different. So we're going to keep it across the board. Gillian is pretty cool. We profiled Gillian last week. She's the girl, if you saw the video, with the really Japanese look on her headshot. Gillian wants to know, or she would love to know, how many times Danny rehearses a new show before he takes to the stage, or does he do that kind of thing, or does he wing it?
Oh no, not at all. Jesus, I wish. You work on bits, literally. Like I've just finished my new show. Started the Edinburgh Fringe Festival in August, and I did 26 nights of that in a row, and now that show got tied through the Edinburgh Fringe. That'll go on tour now until next May, but now I'm starting to work on bits for next year's show. So all year, so from now until about next May, I'll be working on little bits, little stories, ideas. I'll meet up with other comics, we throw ideas around, and then when it comes to about June, I'll start previewing next year's show. So you do previews in June and July, then you bring a semi-form show to the Edinburgh Fringe in August, you hammer it out for 26 nights in a row, and then you've got your polished show. But it's a year's work, basically. It takes a year to write a new hour, and some people write it quicker, some people, don't write a new hour every year. But for me, I think to turn that over, the quicker and earlier you start on it, the easier it's going to be. Even if it's only starting with small little bits and pieces, or even just thinking about the idea, or writing the odd note down in your phone. It's, working little and often all the time, instead of having that leave insert panic, which is what I did for years. You get to the summer and you're like, I haven't done anything for 6 years. Do you know what I mean? What am I going to do? And you're just like up, and that's what I compare writing a new show to. It's that leave insert stress.
Yeah, that's how I do most of my show, most of my talks. I still need to finalise my talk for the and my 2 masterclasses for the Networking Summit, which is next week. And my wedding anniversary is this weekend, so I won't be doing anything this weekend other than drinking my way around Dingle.
You should probably talk to your wife, like.
Is it okay if we take Saturday and Sunday off our wedding anniversary to write my material for next week? That's pretty cool, because it makes a lot of sense as well. I suppose it does take, you have to build into it, because it can't just be write material and wing it and hope it works. Like, you have to feel it out. Like.
You'll get found out, and the same with anyone who's watching this that does any kind of presentations and stuff like that. I know sometimes you're under time pressure and you've only got a short amount of time, but you have to put the work in, because if you don't put the work in, you're going to get found out. And comedy is the exact same. Like, you'll get found out. If you show up to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival and you've 100 people sitting in front of you on your first show or whatever it is, and you haven't done any work that year, they're going to know.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear about it on social media, and you're going to get lashed out of it. And rightly so, because you're like, it's a privilege to have the people there. It's not their privilege to see you. You're the one that's privileged. Like, they're giving you their attention. They've chosen your show out of 7,000 shows to spend an hour with you, and you owe them. Not just for their ticket money, like the ticket money is not as important, it's that you're getting people's attention for an hour. You owe them a good time, you owe them entertainment. or knowledge or whatever it may be, you know?
Yeah, whatever you're sharing. So you don't have to be funny. He gets away with not being funny.
Every day.
Sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. But yeah, you don't have to be funny. You just have to be genuine and you. But at the same time, you need to be engaging the people that are in front of you. And you have to have worked for it. You can't just rock up and assume that you're going to speak to, 100 people or 350 people or a couple of thousand people at a stadium gig. No matter what you're talking at. Even if you're speaking in work and you're just presenting your findings on something that you've done for the last 6 weeks, you can't just kind of half Google it in the toilet before you walk into the presentation and hope to get away with it. The next question is a good one. It's from Dr. Ashish Manohar, probably saying that well wrong, but
Hello,
apologies. Can anxiety and comedy go hand in hand? There's a great question. And we got that a couple of times in private messages in similar formats. And we also got it directly on a comment there as well. Really, really important, because there's that whole thing of the benign and the offensive, and then it's the kind of crossover in the middle that's funny. But the reason that the offensive is funny is because we're full of all these stress hormones, and when you're full of stress hormones, you need something to break that tension, I suppose.
Anxiety for me goes hand in hand with comedy. It's part of it. Like, anxiety is part of our life. Do you know what I mean? I know it's become such a buzzword in the last couple of years. I often hear people always say, "Do you get nervous?" And of course, you know what I mean. Like, even if I'm doing like the Laughter Lounge, for example, I gig and I host there all the time, so I'm used to gigging there for years. And there's still a slight bit of nerves, and I feel very confident in there. But if I'm doing a brand new show for the first time, you're trying to remember your show. Of course you're anxious about it, or halfway through your show you might forget something. But if you're anxious about something, it just means that you care.
Yeah.
Like, everyone gets nervous. You hear people saying, "I don't get nervous." Of course you do. And if you don't care at all about what you're about to perform or what you're about to say, then I don't think you should be really saying it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do agree, because and the same, I said that last week at the Pro Photo, because there's a lot of photographers in front of me, and I told them, there's some of you in this room that do not have any value, or that you have no responsibility in photographing people. You should not be taking photographs of people because you don't care about what you're doing. Like, you want to make money, which is fine, but you've no sense of social responsibility towards the people you're photographing. They should walk out of the room feeling amazing after it. The talk was called Substance over Superficial, and somebody complained that I never spoke about my lighting or how I physically take photographs of people, because that doesn't matter. That's about the superficial. People. Yeah, no, I know, that's the superficial, and I never talked about the It was the substance of the client, or every single person who stands in front of the camera, rather than the physicality of taking photographs, because anybody with a camera can take photographs. It's how you do it that's important, and it's how you engage the person. I suppose it's the same with any crowd as well. Like, I speak regularly in front of a couple of hundred people, like sometimes a bit more. I remember doing a public speaking workshop with Junior Chamber with JCI. Derek Riley, who is the immediate past president of JCI Dublin, he is running the European Convention next year here in Dublin for JCI. And both of us admitted that we get anxious before we go up onto stage and talk, because it's normal. We both said, actually, yeah, I do get anxious before I walk on stage, but it's perfectly normal to feel anxiety, because, our brains don't know the difference between a tiger and a camera or a room full of people. Stress is stress, and your brain is blind and deaf, so it just wants to respond to that anxiety, and it does it in a few different ways. But one of the ways it can do it is that switching off the neocortex, that logical thinking part of the brain, where you just go, I can't think, and we all get stage fright. Or you can walk out and actively take control of that situation and become accustomed to standing on stage, but you still get those little butterflies and stuff to let you know that you actually care about what you're doing.
Charles Bukowski has that quote, is what matters most is how we walk through the fire. And I love that quote, and I think about it a lot. I've been that rabbit stuck in the headlights, like, I don't know how many times, and that panic, it's the worst fear you'll ever feel, is that and everyone's looking at me, and one thing that I've been that person, and I've watched someone be that person, it's never as long as you think it is. You know what I mean? You're there going, "Oh my God, I forgot absolutely everything, everyone is staring at me," but that's a second. It's not even a second, and then you go, right, And it's about having a plan if that happens. You just plan for it and go, right, might have a cheat sheet, for example, with you were saying it with your like bullet points and stuff laid out. Or what I used to do as well, if I ever lost my way throughout a solo show, I take a drink of water to kind of have a little quick mini break, gather my thoughts and go, all right, now I know where we are. But it makes it seem more fluid. So there's loads of little things like that you can do, but everyone forgets everything all the time. Everyone does.
When you go to watch him on stage now, you know if he's drinking water, he's forgotten
just
everything.
Walking around, just drinking water for an hour. Like some Evian ad.
We're going to jump on to the next question. Book recommendations from Kevin Toy.
I'm not a massive reader, but I've been reading some cool stuff. Depends what you're into. Like
Where's Wally?
Yeah. Where's Wally? Like, you know, Paris edition. No, some good. What's probably my favorite books? Kitchen Confidential is probably one of my favorite books ever. If you're into your food and you want to see the kind of, it was Anthony Bourdain's book, that his book that basically blew him up to fame. It's kind of like the Quentin Tarantino of books about cooking and about restaurant life and stuff like that. That's an excellent book. Post Office by Charles Bukowski, I think, still remains my favorite book ever. That's I just absolutely love it. And I recently just finished Limmy, the Scottish sketch comic. I finished his autobiography. He's this mental Glaswegian who's had this bananas life, and it's a really cool insight. I properly was laughing out loud at loads of stuff in that. He's a really weird, dark guy, and if anyone remembers the Limmy show from about 10 years ago, and it's really interesting insight to how he wrote the sketches, and I just found it really cool. I liked it.
Nice.
They're very different, those three. They couldn't be more different.
They couldn't be, one on food, one on a mental life of a comedian, and then the other one is on
Charles Bukowski. It's about a postman in the 1950s in post kind of recession America, and it's all about alcoholism, and it's insane, but it's one of my favorite books. It's great.
Cool. My recommendations will be completely different. Because I don't read books on food, because, you know, I prefer to eat it than read about it. The Head Shop by Peter Hurley obviously is a fantastic book. Peter trained me, and I'm not sure if Peter trained Kevin as well, but you know, it's a great book, and it's great to teach people to first about lighting and how to actually cope with the person standing in front of the camera. I'd be a bit more into mindfulness and wellness and the psychology and kind of how we connect with ourselves. There's a great book by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Joe Dispenza,
he's great.
Smashed himself up in a bike accident and meditated on his own back to heal it, because every hormone or every chemical you can take, you can ingest or have injected into you, basically comes from the human body. You're being given a synthesized version of it, but we can activate and release those hormones ourselves. So Are You the Placebo is one of the books by Joe Dispenza, which is brilliant. How to Be Human as well is another book by Ruby Wax. It's How to Be Human with a monk and a neuroscientist, which is a fantastic book. It's great to have proper discussions with yourself and click a lot of dots in your own head about and connect a lot of things about how we do things and how we interact with ourselves. And why stuff happens, both from a holistic and a scientific point of view. And then there's another book by Kamal Ravikant, and this is a book that I'm constantly recommending for people. It's only available online now. It's not available in hard copy anymore. It's called Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It. It's about 5,000 words, and it's about caring about yourself rather than looking for financial gain, because he had set up a couple of businesses, and every time he set up a business, because he lives in Silicon Valley, people just give you money. You're like, I'm a startup, here's some money. But he said every time he focused on the business and why he wanted to do it, the business would thrive, and then all of a sudden he'd start listening to shareholders and he'd start listening to everybody looking for their slice of the pie, and then the business would collapse. And then psychologically he'd collapse. So he learned a lot about that, but it's a great book, and it's well worth a read, and it's only 5,000 words as well. Even if you're not a reader, it's really worth delving into. So they're really, really cool books. I can't think of anything else offhand.
I listened to a lot of a lot of Joe Dispenza stuff. And but this year's show, I actually got into a lot of meditation, and that's something that I was big into. And he's one of the people that I started listening to, and his story and stuff like that. And I'm like probably one of the biggest stress heads I know by a country mile. And I had a